The mindset of everything and everyone is on your team, allows you to experience life through a much more connected lens. Most of us feel very isolated and we're on our own. The reality is there's really not much that we can do on our own. You mentioned that we're just a small part of it, but we're all just a small part of it. But together, we're the whole part, right? I think that's important to find what our, personal mission is or where our skill set can offer the most value back to whatever our community may be.
Welcome to the Secrets to Abundant Living podcast. Your guide on this journey is Amy Sylvis, ready to unlock the keys to a life of true abundance. We're diving into everything from financial freedom and optimal health to meaningful relationships, geographic freedom, and everything in between. It's about creating a life rich in experiences, purpose, and joy. If you're ready for the secrets to an abundant life, hit that subscribe button now, and let's get started.
Secrets to Abundant Living podcast community. Welcome to another episode. As you know, I am your host, Amy Sylvis, but more importantly, we have a really special guest today, Mr. Brandon Hance. He doesn't know, but I've been following him for several decades. Gosh, that makes me sound old. Well, USC Trojans, I know, right? Let's kick it off in a creepy way. Let's do this. But you all know it's not a secret. I've been a big USC football fan, but actually we're here to talk about his incredible life, not even on the field, but off the field. And Mr. Hance, welcome. I'm so excited to have you here today.
So excited to be here. I love that introduction.
Well, gosh, you reached out to me, I think, on LinkedIn, which was really, really awesome. I've been following and commenting on your content, but I just love your story. It's so impressive. And I'd love to hear, maybe you can give us a brief synopsis and give us a starting point to kind of dive off and get to know you a bit better.
Yeah, I'm happy to share that. I do want to start just by saying how much I've enjoyed your content and just your approach and energy. Just seems so positive and filled with light and service. So it's been an inspiration as well. And it's really exciting just to get to meet you today. Obviously, we're on a podcast, but now I'm excited to call you like a real friend. We're not just, we're still quasi-digital, but this feels more like IRL.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. I love it. And we started this off. I mean, I'm going to interrupt you, but I got to show this picture because it's just too fun of a memory. This is, what is it? January 1st, 2000, maybe four, right? Four. Yep. Yeah. Little game that I think I wasn't on the field. So I was just one of those weird fans in the stands, but we started off the podcast talking about that. So I'm sure we're going to have more, virtual and IRL things to talk about around that. But yeah, tell us about you a little bit and we'll dive in.
Gosh, well, I'm born and raised in LA.
Okay.
Made the crazy decision to leave LA to go to Purdue for 2 years.
Yeah.
I had an opportunity to start at Purdue as a freshman right after Drew Brees graduated, which was an incredible opportunity.
Wow.
And we can talk about that, but I blew out my shoulder, decided to transfer back home to USC. That was Carson Palmer's senior year. And then it was me, Matt Leiter, Matt Castle competing for the starting job the following year. So was there at just the most incredible, time. I believe was the best team in the history of college football. And for those that disagree, they'd still have to put us top three. So it was an unbelievable time. Graduated from there and started my career in entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
I started a venture-funded music technology company that I sold in 2012 and spun out a similar e-commerce business that I sold in 2015. And then around that time, I began investing in real estate. Investing became advising became part-time, and then ultimately it became my full-time career focus probably 5 or 6 years ago. So I've built around 150 residential infill projects throughout the city of LA that range from spec homes to townhome developments to condo projects. And now my focus is mostly on affordable housing here in LA. So that's, professionally, I'm very happily married. I have 3 beautiful young daughters. And so that's it in 60 seconds or less.
Incredible. I love that you have girl dad in your bio. I think that's one of the coolest things on LinkedIn that you have. I mean, obviously your professional and personal accomplishments are great, but just the focus on your family and how it seems you're very proud to raise these 3 young women is so cool as well. That's really special. Wow. I mean, I don't even know where to start. Maybe we can do reverse chronological order because living in Los Angeles, our audience has heard me gripe about Los Angeles and how difficult it can be to do anything real estate here, let alone development, let alone affordable housing. I want to talk about everything that you mentioned, but can we start off there? Because I'm just so curious to hear what motivated you to go down that direction, what that's been like. I'm imagining it's so meaningful, but also maybe a little bit of a fight. Can you give us some insight there?
I can. Yeah, I will say that Los Angeles has always been an expensive place to live. But a
Right.
couple years ago, we hit peak in affordability, and we are the least affordable city in the United States. The same can be true about how chronically undersupplied our housing stock is. So
Mhm.
when you combine the two of those, we have a problem that is truly endemic. And it's extremely difficult for Angelenos to find a respectable place to call home and raise their families. So as somebody who, was born and raised in LA, educated here, building a business, raising a family here, it just felt very aligned from a mission standpoint to, devote my career and kind of leverage my network and skills to at least be a part of solving that problem. It's interesting you mentioned the challenge. We can do 10 episodes of challenges that I've encountered.
Hopefully.
Ironically, I felt like pivoting into affordable housing would actually shift that to a certain degree. What
Right.
I mean by that is, it's a bit of if you can't beat them, join them from a political standpoint. There are far more tailwinds than headwinds in affordable. I'll give you an example. I have a fairly high-end luxury townhome development in Hollywood, unobstructed views to the city, downtown LA, Hollywood sign, beautiful. It's been done for 17 months. I still don't have power. LADWP has been an absolute colossal nightmare to work with on every front. I say that only to draw the juxtaposition for affordable housing. There's an entire department at LADWP that is purpose built for affordable. It's called Project Powerhouse.
Yep.
And instead of it being at the end of a very long line of things to do, it's actually the first thing that's done. And the city actually pays for it. So all of the line extensions, all of that work is actually done for by the city. So that's just one small example of many to where there actually are some real advantages that help to streamline that process and feel like you're working with the city, not against them.
Oh my gosh. Working with the government instead of against them can really be the difference between pulling your hair out and really, doing well by doing good, I would imagine.
That's the
Yeah,
aim.
that's brilliant. We talk a lot about, this is called the Secrets to Abundant Living podcast. Money is really cool, but if you combine that, if you can find out a way to have deeper meaning, make a positive impact, all of those things, that's where things really, really get good. Can you tell us a story or two about kind of the impact that you've been able to feel? I know sometimes we do great work. Affordable housing is just one example where it sounds good in theory, maybe you're kind of distanced from it, but I'm sure you felt, the positive impact that you've made on this great city of ours. I'd love to hear an example or two if you're willing to share.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I'll say, just to your point on really fulfillment or abundance, the more layers outside of yourself that you're able to contribute to, the deeper and richer that fulfillment will be for yourself. So, if you're doing something for yourself, that's great. If you're doing it for your family and then for your city or for your country or for a bigger purpose beyond that, each ring really does unlock not only fulfillment, but I think also resources and creativity and opportunities as well. And I've certainly found that to be true. If you feel like you're doing something in service of other people and you're really you're growing for the sake of contributing back, just things fall in line a little bit easier, opportunities present themselves a bit more clearly. So that's been my experience in this specific business plan. I think
Brilliant.
we've had the opportunity, we just mean in my company, but I personally have had the
Yeah.
opportunity to really meet families or, young people that are really doing all the right things. Like
Uh-huh.
came out, like I met this one guy that I'm kind of mentoring. He's 21 years old, and he unfortunately had a very challenging childhood. Went through the foster system, graduated from high school, is putting himself through college now, has student loans, had a pretty abusive childhood through two of the families, and here he is, has two jobs and is a full-time student. Would love nothing more than just have a safe place to rest his head and just can't afford to live anywhere, right? And so some of the programs that, that we're offering, or some of the nonprofit or city programs that are subsidized that work with housing providers like us, give us the opportunity to take these concepts that are so big they can become abstract
Mm.
and almost unhuman. And if you have the opportunity to meet the real people, right, like that single mother or this young professional just trying to make a better life for themselves, you're able to really connect that back to all of the, hair pulling craziness that we have to endure throughout the process
Yeah.
and just come back to the first principle, like, why are we actually doing this?
Yeah.
And we can see the impact that it makes. And if that changes that one person's life, that's enough.
Gosh, that description is so palpable. I mean, talking about having the odds stacked against you and then you being able to be a part of that solution, even if you're not the whole solution, right? You get to
Right.
play a significant part, and that has ripple effects.
Well, that's the
Like you
beauty. I mean,
said,
we all, I think the mindset of everything and everyone is on your team, allows you to experience life through a much more connected lens. Most of us feel very isolated and we're on our own. The reality is there's really not much that we can do on our own. You mentioned that we're just a small part of it, but we're all just a small part of it. But together, we're the whole part, right? So, yeah, I think that's important to find what our personal mission is or where our skill set can offer the most value back to whatever our community may be.
wow. You mentioned, Brandon, at the beginning, you started a company right out of college that you sold, I think, maybe close to a decade later, maybe a little
Yeah.
bit less than that.
Mm.
Reaching such accomplishments at such a young age, I would imagine you had to really sit back and think, what's next as in your early 30s? I mean, that's pretty incredible. What led you on this journey to want to go on and, start something in real estate after being in, I think the company's name was Audiophile. Is that
Audio Life was my
like,
first company. Yeah.
excuse me. Yeah.
Yeah.
What was that
I would
like?
I would say that I really just consider myself more of an entrepreneur than a real estate developer per se.
Okay.
And I really enjoy the early stage process of forming the team, creating a culture, establishing a go-to-market strategy, raising the capital, just kind of the full stack of starting and building a company.
Okay.
And like I said, I did that twice on my own. And then I've been either an investor and advisor in, a couple dozen companies who have gone through that process as well. So initially, I had a childhood best friend of mine who was just flipping houses. And I said, oh, I'll invest in a project with you and tried to do that through the lens of learning from, A to Z. How does this process work as a more hands-on investor?
Yeah.
This is a little bit of paying for an education, but that education having a direct return if it all worked out. And it was through that experience that, it was impossible to turn my brain off of, oh, we could add technology here. And what about this strategic partner? Have you thought about scaling? And here's a more capital efficient structure. It obviously just kept going. So I didn't think about it necessarily through the lens of this is real estate and not tech. I thought it through the lens of this is just a cool entrepreneurial opportunity. And my skill set was more of a generalist anyways than any, specific domain. So yeah, so that's what I mentioned before, that it started as an investment. And then I said, hey, I think I can help you from an advisory standpoint. And then I just started doing more and more because we, began building momentum and it was really exciting. And the thing about tech, as we all know, is the most brilliant, hardworking, well-funded entrepreneurs on the planet have a 90% failure rate. And in real estate, I'm not sure exactly what the odds are, but it's probably somewhat inverse of that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if you just go to work every day, with your hard hat and lunch pail, and you go put in a good day's of work in, your odds of success are dramatically higher than they are in tech. And so transitioning away from that field into real estate made sense for me, given the phase I was in my life, just getting married, thinking about having a family, not wanting to travel, not wanting to, sleep on my office floor and work 100 hours a week. I just felt like kind of a fun thing to do. And all those pieces fell into place.
Have you ever thought about having multiple streams of income? Instead of relying on just one stream of income where you're trading your time for money, how would you like to free up more of your time and live a more abundant life? As a listener of the show, you're invited to attend one of our upcoming trainings where I'll give you an inside look into how you can add passive income and get all the other perks of recession-resistant real estate investing without the headaches of being a landlord. I'll also be sharing some hidden mistakes to avoid and the criteria I personally look for when evaluating potential investment opportunities. To reserve your seat for free, go to sylviscapital.com/webinar. Again, that special link to reserve your seat for free is sylviscapital.com/webinar. I look forward to seeing you on the training. And now back to the show. So matching your desires with the lifestyle that you wanted to create for yourself, along with your skill set and what really drove you. It's a really smart formula. Did you learn these entrepreneurial skills? Was this back at SC? Was it informal or formal mentorship? Was it just something you were born with and you always kind of knew it was a part of your being? What spurred all
It's
this?
so funny looking back because it's almost embarrassing to admit how naive I was to the world. I remember, I think it was my sophomore year that Coach Carroll, I forget who it was, but Coach Carroll, basically set up like I don't know, an introductory phone call with a big donor. I thought it was like an interview or whatever. It was just a phone call. And we were having a conversation. I had the chance to ask him about his business. And he said the word revenue before, or on this call. And I don't think I'd ever heard the word before. And I wrote it down and I went to go like Google it afterwards. Like, what does this word mean? I'm like, oh, that was literally how unsophisticated I was. I had no idea. I didn't even know what the term entrepreneur was. Still to this day, I've never had a resume. I've never been on a, job interview before.
Yeah.
So I graduated. I was like, oh, I guess I'll just go create a company. I didn't know any better. And I never really had an internship at SC because we weren't allowed to at that time.
Yep.
And just, football in school, and that was it. So yeah, I started it with zero experience, vocabulary, network, skills. And it was a wild ride.
Incredible. You said a few things though along the way, and I know we're only, about 10, 15 minutes in though, that made me think, I wonder if he picked that up, as being a part of a team, being a part of not just any team, a very successful team of, we don't do anything on our own, right? We're always a product of the people that we're around. We don't, control everything. I don't mean to misquote you, but just these ideas of being on a team. And I'm wondering how much football really influenced that entrepreneurial journey and gave you maybe some of the skills or some of the mindset for you to be such a successful entrepreneur.
Well, I think football is the ultimate team sport.
Yeah.
And I feel the same about life, that life is the ultimate team sport. Of course, being a part of those years at USC football, that was just an extraordinary opportunity, not only to play alongside of some of the best players in the game, but also to learn from some of the best coaches who have ever done it before. Obviously, if you get to that level, you were kind of a star your whole life. And so when I ended up coming back to SC and backing up Matt, that was the first time I'd ever experienced not being in the limelight. And I remember, Coach Carroll and I had a great relationship, and I was, one play away from, being on the field.
Yep.
So I had to stay ready and make sure that I was mentally prepared for each and every opportunity.
Yeah.
By the token, it was a very different experience going into a stadium as the starter versus as the backup. And
Okay.
Coach Carroll said, hey, make sure that you stay engaged. I said, listen, I will. And this isn't a quid pro quo, but what I would greatly appreciate is the opportunity to learn from you as a leader. And so he responded very well to that. Neither of us knew where it would go, but we kind of had this unsaid commitment to one another that I was going to be his, mentee and he was going to be my mentor. And so
Wow.
at games, of course, we play on Saturdays. We're at the hotel on Friday nights.
Yeah.
We do the team dinner. Everybody goes to their room, and we would stay, Coach Carroll and I. We would stay down there after the whole team left, and he would essentially give me the recap of the week. And the format would vary from week to week, but it would always be, whatever he thought were the most critical decisions that he made over the course of the week with respect to personnel or managing his staff or interfacing with administration or fundraising or recruiting or what have you. And I think the first one he was relatively prepared for. And then after that, it almost felt as therapeutic for him as it was for me. And I really learned a lot from that. And we did that for 2 full seasons. So, I had whatever that is, 25 or so opportunities to sit down with him the night before a game and have, sometimes conversations that lasted for more than an hour. And so that just those alone was, worth an MBA in leadership. But then obviously there's every other day at practice, in the weight room, at the games, before and after, and just seeing the way that he managed himself was just a first class ticket to, what I thought was best in class, not only in terms of what we accomplish on the field, but the how we accomplish it. Today there's many aspects of his style that have been adopted, kind of at all levels.
Yeah.
But at that time, he was very rare. And you probably remember as a diehard, lifelong USC fan that when he was first hired, it was
Oh,
really like, no, I mean, he actually got fired from his two previous positions.
yep.
And so one of the things that fascinated me most about his story after I met him was that after he was fired from his second NFL position, he went almost for a year. It was like 9 months that just said, I need to be deeply reflective, go on an introspective journey of my values,
Yep.
my life philosophy, and be true to that moving forward. To the extent I get another opportunity, it is going to be all of me that shows up. And that all of me is unapologetically resonant in my beliefs, my values, my philosophy. And so he didn't know. There was a fear factor there of, okay, this feels right to me, but I've never done it. And it's totally contrarian. And there's aspects of it that may seem woo-woo or that may, be so easily susceptible to criticism from others. It's like, F it, I'm going to do it. I'm going to go for it. And it
Yes.
was that really worked. And so each of us need to find that in ourselves
Yeah.
is our equivalent of that. I think a lot of people, even some of the coaches, frankly, that followed him at SC, tried to emulate his exact style.
Yep.
What they should have done is emulate that process of going and finding what's true to you and then making sure that that's how you show up each and every day.
Yes.
And some of those guys, obviously, Sark and Kiff and so forth,
Coach O.
have since figured out exactly how to do that.
Yeah.
You see them on the sidelines coaching today, and it's like, oh, there you are. Okay, that's the guy.
Yes.
But kind of tried to step into being like Coach Carroll instead of just trying to step into the process that he followed and the courage it took to do so.
Just amazing. I had the chance to go to his class that he taught. I think it was last spring or 2 springs ago. It was just, the fact that he returned back to SC, just always giving, right? I just can't imagine, as you said, this world-class education that you got and kind of this thing that you negotiated of being, the backup quarterback and being able to, make that deal that you could talk to him, learn from him. That's amazing. I want to pull on this thread, though. You mentioned just a couple of minutes ago about, to get to the level where you got in football, you had to be really successful most of your life. And then to find yourself as a backup, what was that? You touched on this, but I'd like to dive a little bit deeper about what that must have been like to kind of get to that spot where you weren't probably exactly where you wanted to be, but you made the best of the situation. In fact, you probably did. Maybe you grew more than you would have had you been the starter. Can you tell us a little bit about what that journey was like?
Yeah, I mean, just to touch on the last part of your question,
Yeah.
people ask me often, I mean, less now that I'm an old fart, but certainly right at that time, people would say, do you regret your decision to come back? And I said, absolutely not. That was the best decision I ever made in my life,
Wow.
at least at that time. So absolutely made the most of it. I think that I absolutely could have regretted it and absolutely robbed myself of the experience, the learning, the lessons, the relationships, if I didn't have the right attitude. So we can come back to that.
Yeah.
When I was at Purdue, I was actually unhappy. I graduated high school a year early. So I was in the middle of Indiana as a 17-year-old, completely, experiencing culture shock, experiencing, harsh winters for the first time, away from my family, missed the prom, missed all the fun stuff that you're supposed to do your senior year. And I just wasn't in a great place psychologically. The whole staff that recruited me left right when I got there. So it was a new staff that came over. I just didn't love it. And so it was a part of me during that time that started to lose my love of the game, to be honest. And I don't mean that I went from love to hate, but I
Right.
mean I went from 100% to 99%.
Yeah.
And that's enough to make a massive difference because it requires all of you to be able to play at that level. And then, of course, I got hurt. So
Right.
when I transferred, I think it was like 17 months between when I got hurt to when I was able to throw a football. And so that's a long period of time. And during that period of time, I began thinking of, well, what about life after football? And that's when I really got excited about just loosely the ideas of entrepreneurship. And so, yes, once I did heal and that year passed and it was time to go compete in the spring, of course, 99 or 95 or 92%, some huge part of me wanted that.
Yeah.
But I did know, like deep down, that there was a part of me that had kind of moved on from it as well. And so there were aspects of me that were very disappointed that I wasn't starting. And there were other aspects of me that I could admit today, but there's no way I could have admitted then, that was relieved because it really wasn't where my heart was fully committed to at that time. And so I felt actually in that moment just grateful to, even though I was kind of a little bit lying to others, because there was some degree of like, oh, what a disappointment, because it was the easy thing and the obvious thing to say.
Yeah.
But inside of me, I really felt, wow, I'm getting the best of all worlds. I'm at USC studying what I want to study on an incredible team, still able to enjoy all of the camaraderie of being on a team, but not necessarily needing to be, exclusively focused in that one domain of my life. So it worked out great for me, and I wouldn't have changed it any other way. And by the way, like I was the best man in Matt Leiner's wedding. Me and Castle grew up together. Like we're all brothers. Like the QB fraternity at USC is just an incredible bond that we all share, which also is very unique. Most guys in that environment, you're competing with each other. So it's very much a zero-sum game.
Yeah.
And, thankfully, none of us ever looked at it that way. And we just committed to each other, and we were very close friends now, and we're just as close today.
I so appreciate you sharing that story, because I'm positive there's more than one person listening to this podcast episode thinking, life is so hard. I cannot believe the things that are not going in my way. And to see the example of, and I think our culture teaches us, right? Like, oh, success is just, straight up and to the right, right? You just do the thing and boom, all of a sudden, all the great things happen. But to have this appreciation of sometimes the setbacks are the setups for the comeback, or for the slingshot that really, really launches you towards where you want to go. I'm not saying that's your exact story, but it's just so valuable for all of us to hear these stories of life doesn't always turn out exactly the way we want, but it may be just exactly what we need to get where we're meant to go, or where we're supposed to go, or where we want to go, however you frame that. I just so appreciate you saying that. I got a text from Jaywalk, who told me to tell you hi, by the way. He said to tell you that we all know how talented you are, and so impressed by how you handled the adversity like a genius. I have unconditional respect and admiration for Hance. So nice.
Wow.
Right?
All right. I'm thankful. Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, of course. Of course. It's such a cool thing to hear from a former teammate. Wow. So can you talk to us a little bit, final question here, about a time when maybe we touched on abundance, kind of using different terms, that maybe either in your early career or now, I don't mean to call out your age, but I'm just a few years older than you, so maybe your early 40s, I think you are, where your definition of what abundance has changed in your life, or maybe you made a slight tweak or adjusted it dramatically. Has that been a moving target or something that's changed in your life at some point?
Yeah, I think that it's much more of a feeling state for me than the way that I would have described it before, which is more external, abundant in a bank account or possessions or things that you can point to from the outside looking in, if you will. And so I think of abundance much more from the inside looking out now, that you actually feel abundant, right? Like you feel whole and aligned and centered, and also that you are living a life of purpose and service, and that when those things are true, opportunities will just kind of fall in your lap. Like you really pull them in. And so there's a feeling of abundance in the sense of, oh man, like everything is actually happening for me here. And I know that may sound a bit cliche, but I really feel that, the purpose of all of our lives is just to learn and grow, right? So if you're anchored in learning and growth, then literally everything that is occurring in your life is there for your highest good. And so if you believe that, then that is the ultimate feeling and belief of abundance, because literally everything and everyone is on your team, there for your greatest good, there to teach you what you need to do to take the next step in your life. So that is a feeling of abundance to me.
Mic drop. That's brilliant. What great wisdom. And it is so clear how your mindset and how you've structured your life has led to the success that you have, not only in your career, but with your family, and how you've created your life and your relationships. Thank you so much for joining us here today.
That was my pleasure. Thank you so much. And hopefully we can do more of this.
Oh my gosh. Are you kidding? Well, I'm at the Coliseum every Saturday during the college football season. So I'm 5'2". I'm a little bit, it's easy to miss me, but you'll be able to find me at some point.
I have a feeling you're pretty loud though and fired up. Yeah.
Hey, how did you figure that out?
No, you got a lot of energy. I like that.
Well, thank you again. This was really, really a delight. And yeah, as you said, hopefully we can do this again soon, but really appreciate all of your wisdom and encouragement for folks listening today. Really impressive.
Thank you very much.
All right. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you on the next episode. Bye for now.
Thank you for joining us on another episode of the Secrets to Abundant Living podcast. We hope you found inspiration and valuable insights that will empower you on your journey towards abundance. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. Your feedback means the world to us, and it helps others discover the secrets to an abundant life too. Stay connected with us on LinkedIn, Amy Sylvis. Keep striving for your goals, nurturing your relationships, and embracing the adventure that is life. Until next time, we wish you an abundantly fulfilling day.